Mr. Okumado, it is very interesting that, law does have a role to play here. The question will be that in a field as technical as aviation, and the fact that, even taking scientific investigations by the professionals, as you've classified them, it still takes up to a period of, let's say, at least a year for a concrete report ascertaining why something did happen. What we have now as a fact is that 2 engines failed. As it stands, we still do not know why they failed. Do you think that that would have been possible in a court of law?
Oh, well, even in the inquest that we are referring to.
Yes.
I remember, and I had the opportunity of examining, well, we didn't use the word cross-examining because it's not entirely a conventional court process. And we asked those questions directly, particularly when we learned that soon after the incident, the suppliers, well, I think it was corn oil also, who provided the fuel, aviation fuel, had to immediately call for the re-examination of their tanks to ascertain whether they were adulterations and contaminations. Yeah. And I recall, with due respect, that the lines of questions that we posed regarding that information was to discover whether that could be a possibility. Mm-hmm. Because, yes, accidents do occur, but it is almost impossible in terms of frequency to find that the 2 engines would collapse simultaneously. Mm-hmm. And therefore, besides the fear that the regulatory bodies may not be doing optimally in terms of oversighting, we also suspected that there are possibilities of compromise. And those questions, I remember, were directly put to. So those were efforts, judicial efforts, made concretely to ensure that we also got to the root of this matter. Because let me tell you how it plays out. Sorry, sir. Okay. The picture, I mean the impression created at the moment, the haste, the timing with which this suspension is lifted, mm-hmm. is such that Nigerians are completely bothered that perhaps the federal government is by far more interested in the survival of these businesses than the lives and security of the people.
And not flouting international procedures.
Oh, well, that international proceedings, again, he mentioned your predecessor also was relying heavily on this international best practice and procedures. And then gave a misinformation that was completely knocked out by Captain Araba. To say that you never, there are no instances where reports are given immediately after authoritatively, I mean categorically. Some of these things we flout as international best practices.
But isn't this judicial, do I call it intervention, seemingly premature? Because to the extent that this is just a preliminary report, so if you go to court, or if government if they insisted on suspension of the operating license, what if they had gone to court and say, on what basis are you suspending our operational license? Since an operational audit conducted by us says we are A-OK, since the audit, also the checks, they've done all their checks, it seems to be okay. Since the AIB's report is not out, why would you go to court, or why would it be right for the government to insist that their operational license be suspended?
Oh, well, let me understand it. Is it the inquest or the one they have gone to Federal High Court?
First, the inquest, because ultimately you say it's suspicious that the government seems to be interested in the business, survival of the business, not for the people.
That's my personal view.
But the argument there is that perhaps not. Because if government had insisted on not giving the license, if Dana had gone to court, they might have a case against government.
Well, that is also speculative.
But possible.
Possible. Now, but if I could answer your question directly, let me inform that the inquest commenced even before the preliminary report came out. The inquest took off if you like, almost immediately after the...
What will the inquest be predicated on?
No, these are fact-finding judicial exercises.
Yeah, but would it be complete without the reports from AIB?
I'm saying that even AIB was one of the parties that were invited to testify in that. AIB...
As an individual or as a body?
No, AIB is an agency.
No, what would
Accident Investigation Bureau. The bureau was there at the inquest and testified.
Mr. Ogumado,
are you with me?
What would have been interesting would have been the responses that the AIB was going to give as a body.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there. Our correspondent gave us, you know, some feelers of what it was like there. And the news headlines at some point were saying, you know, Dana air crash caused by contaminated fuel. It made the rounds in the papers, and you know, and a host of people were already beginning to run with that. Did you not have the fear that, you know, at the end of the day, the inquest could actually bring more headlines talking about what was the cause rather than what was the scientific cause?
So, well, I have made the point clear that the inquest, if you like, is not a scientific entity that can give you scientific reports. It is a fact-finding judicial exercise that gets to the root of those 3 PowerPoints that I mentioned by and within the purview of what they have the capacity to do.
Sorry, let me quickly rephrase my question. What were the responses of the AIB like?
Oh, now the testimony of the AIB regarding the accident were not as conclusive as it ought to be regarding categorically what happened. But that did not detract from the fact that they also established the fact that they were already investigating. Now, the point is, if the inquest was allowed, as they ought to get to the end of this exercise, perhaps we would have had a judicial aspect of this exercise that will collaborate with the technical exercise that we all talked about. Okay. And therefore, it was almost suspicious that efforts would be made to truncate an exercise in which even relatives of the victims were invited to testify.